Welcome to the Métis in Canada podcast. My name is Rob McDonald. Thank you very much for joining us today. And each week we try to invite special guests to talk about the Métis Nation, in particular the people, the history, the culture, and the political state of affairs. And today I'm very proud to introduce to you Shawn Nault, Minister of Red River Métis Veterans, who will be joining us to talk about what's going on across the Métis Nation as it relates to the Métis veterans in particular. But before we go on and before we start asking some questions, Minister Nault, I'd like to introduce a video called a Métis Minute, taking a look at our veterans.
Sounds good.
From the days of the Great Bison Hunt to today, the Red River Métis have not only been patriots, we've also been champions of democracy. From the victory of Frog Plain in 1816 to the Battle of Portage in 1885, World War I in 1914 and World War II in 1939, thousands of Métis men and women have taken up arms in defense of democracy, both in our homeland and across the globe. We honor all war veterans, whether they fight for our nation on our home soil or went elsewhere to fight for principles the Red River Métis still hold dear today: democracy, community, and minority rights. Today you'll often see Red River Métis citizens wearing these beautiful handmade beaded poppies to honor the memory and legacies of our veterans. Veterans are our heroes, today, tomorrow, and forever.
Thank you very much to the Manitoba Métis Federation for allowing us to share that video with you today. And of course, once again, I'd like to thank you for joining us, Minister Nault. You know, November 8th is National Indigenous Veterans Day, a very, very important day leading up to Remembrance Day on the 11th, of course. How important is this for the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis to be recognized on this day?
It is very important for us to be recognized by this for several different reasons, but I'm also torn on this as well. But one of the reasons I can say, Rob, is in 1876, Indigenous people were allowed to vote if they gave up their status. By World War II, Indigenous soldier status, Indians had to become enfranchised before they could sign up to fight in the Second World War, which meant that when they returned home to their communities, they no longer had Indian status. Métis were told to go back to your trap lines. None of our Indigenous soldiers were given the respect, the services, and the head start to regain a productive civilian life that was offered to non-Indigenous soldiers. We were not respected as a people of Canada, yet we signed up to fight for our country we love by the thousands. So really, to me, having our own Indigenous Veterans Day is almost like a segregation. So if we could have it where even during our November 11th, like National Veterans Day, we could incorporate it that way would be perfect. But having our own day is a good thing as well because of those reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You know, when it came down to the call to join the cause during the First and the Second World Wars, we know that Métis entire communities were pretty much vacant of the men, you know, as they walked and they took the horse to go several miles to sign up. And, you know, they believed in Canada, they believed in democracy, and they believed in protecting what we have here in Canada, despite being asked to go to far off lands in a war they knew very little about.
Correct. There's also, I've heard stories from veterans' families where some of them actually walked for days, like 2, 3 days at a time to get to a recruitment depot to sign up.
I have a video I'd like to share with you, which is my tribute to First Nations, Inuit, as well as Métis, who actually signed up when they heard across the radio to sign up to join the cause in Europe.
Mhm.
Young First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, many still boys, most approaching the prime of their lives, drawn by the radio noise. Entire communities were nearly emptied, armed with Indigenous pride. From the four corners they went, they'd walked, or else on horseback they'd ride. 150,000 or more signed up to join the cause. From Cumberland House, Pine Creek, and Nain, they did it without pause. For they had something to offer, these expert hunters and trappers, skills that would come to serve them well as sharpshooters and trackers. With moccasins on, deep into the night like rabbits they went, guided by the stars, teams of young scouts in search of the enemy's tent. They had no doubt they were serving their country well, fighting for freedom in far-off lands, enduring a living hell. From Vimy Ridge to Passchendaele, Dieppe to Juno Beach, Hill 19 to Berlin, from the mud and the misery they fought hard in the streets. When it was all over, these Indigenous soldiers, first boys, now men, had heeded the call. While many returned home, several others took the ultimate fall. Their spirits still lay in that land so far away, lying in wait to someday return home, or so their whispers say. Now, Minister Nault, I understand that when First Nations, Inuit, and Métis returned from active duty, a lot of them were simply given a handshake. You'd already mentioned about this and said to head back to your trap line, head back home, which was in some cases many, many miles away. And they fought for many, many years, though, to get the compensation that they wanted. They were looking for some sort of financial support to get themselves back on their feet. They were looking for support to get into housing, support to start a business, and that did not come, especially for the Métis. And as I recall, it was 2019 that the government of Canada actually stepped forward with some financial support for those First and Second World War veterans, as we were, of course, losing a lot of our veterans as well.
Yes, we were. And there's also stories I've heard from families, once again, because most of our Indigenous veterans are either too old or they've already passed on, that when they did get back to Canada, they were segregated once again. The non-Indigenous soldiers went to one room, the Indigenous soldiers went over to another one, and sometimes they were in those rooms for days. Nobody came, gave them food, water, or anything. Some of them left and eventually ended up getting arrested because technically they deserted at that point, and meanwhile they're just trying to get home. But to answer your question, Rob, this is where I have to give all the all the credit to President Chartrand. He has been the greatest president that the Red River Métis have ever had. And I do not recall the exact date when President Chartrand started lobbying and negotiating with Canada for an apology and the recognition payments for our Métis veterans. But it is only because of his negotiation skills and not taking no for an answer that he was able to get the formal apology and recognition payments to give to our remaining alive Métis veterans. I think right now we're in the 30s for recognition payments, somewhere around there, but there was a lot that passed on well before even the deadline that Canada had imposed, which I do believe would have been January of 2016, I think it was. If they died before that, they didn't get the recognition payment or the apology. But if the veteran passed before that, then it would go to his spouse, and if the spouse had passed on as well, then it went to the children.
So there's lots of work yet to be done. I understand that in 2023, the Red River Métis Veterans Office was actually formed and you became the minister in charge. What is your mandate going forward?
My mandate is there's many key points. To start with, we had to develop the Red River Métis database, which we're very close to launching. We will be conducting interviews with our veterans shortly, but we have discovered that doing interviews and asking certain questions can also trigger flashbacks. And that is something we want to make sure that the veteran has supports in place and our team is well aware of the mental aspect of it on how to basically help the veteran through while they're doing these interviews. Well, I'm also supposed to partner with the Legions, which we are doing right now, to bolster their memberships. And another thing is to partner with the Canadian Armed Forces for recruitment and also to be able to help their Indigenous members stay active in the service, because a lot of them are releasing for various reasons. Because not only is racism alive and well, it's some of them just they don't get promoted and so on and so forth. Another thing I'm in the process of doing is starting another, like a Legion for Métis veterans. Like there is one branch in St. Laurent, but have our own uh, organization, I guess you would say, within the Métis veterans government structure, where we can either get together online, get together for coffee. Like obviously, if we're in different provinces, it's going to be online, but we can get together, chat, do wellness checks with each other, and so on.
When you talk about the Canadian military and that you mentioned about racism, how big of a factor is that today, and how much of a deterrent is that today in recruiting Métis to join the armed forces?
It's not really a deterrent in the recruitment portion. It's once a soldier actually gets into their basic training, their battalion. It may not be as prevalent during basic training, but when you get to a battalion, whichever one you're going to, it doesn't really matter. You're always going to have individuals who have racist attitudes, and sometimes it's just the sly little comments. But you know how that goes: 1,000 cuts can kill you, and eventually
Yeah.
your promotions are blocked. So then people just get frustrated and they release.
As part of your mandate as well, I understand that you have to produce some kind of education materials. What kind of materials are you actually producing, and are you focused on a specific group, or what are you doing with that?
Uh, Within our department, we are have developed. I got to watch exactly what I say with the regards to the MVLP, because there is a court battle going on right now. But we're with partnering through VAC. We have developed and are coming up with more strategies on how to deliver services to our veterans, and we have literature available for that. I do believe we have some on our website. And when we go to any trade shows, we make sure we have all that paperwork with us. And even our regional meetings across Manitoba, we bring our staff and they have all this papers.
I have a short video of a Métis Memorial, which is very, very impressive. I'm not sure if my producer Ian can take a look at that video, but it's very, very impressive what you're doing with these Métis memorials. And that's really an opportunity to have everyone being able to come and visit these memorials and see the names on the stones that are there, and remember, especially at this time of year.
I do believe I was in that video somewhere as well when we
Yeah,
marched
and
to
this is a
color.
video of the yeah, and this
I was still
video I think
Baton.
was Batosh, exactly. And are there other memorials that are going to be established at some point in the
Yes,
future?
I had an idea for a memorial to encompass all Métis veterans, right from the first Battle of Frog Plains all the way through to current times. And we are in partnership and talking with the association that takes care of Old Grants Mill right on Portage Avenue. There is a field that's there that would be perfect for a memorial for all these soldiers. And right now we're just in the process of talks, and we've developed a little bit of a plan, like what the layout would look like, and then we can get it to fruition eventually.
So, as November 8th is an annual event leading up to November 11th, what can we as Métis do to support our veterans going forward?
Basically, never forget. Always tell your children, grandchildren, talk to everybody around you. Talk to a veteran, thank them for their service, and do not let somebody disrespect veterans. Like for myself, it really bothers me when I see it's like November 4th today and people have their Christmas decorations up already. Why not wait till after Remembrance Day before you put these up? That's just a few things that we can do. And basically, always keep talking and never forget them.
Absolutely. And shake the hand of a veteran that you see.
Yes.
Okay. Any final thoughts to add before we go today?
We are having our Indigenous Veterans Day ceremony this year in Portage, Prairie. I have to send regrets that I will not be there. I was asked to go to Cyprus with Veterans Affairs Canada. It's the anniversary of the battles in our peacekeeping priorities and missions to the island of Cyprus. So we have other ministers that will be taking my place and helping out there. Minister Will Goodall will be doing the emceeing. I do believe Minister Andrew Carrier is delivering a speech. And that's one of the things, like I said, with partnering with the legions for part of our mandate is we will go all across the province for each consecutive year will be another other legion in one of the other towns. We will always try and make sure we have our Indigenous ceremonies at a legion. Last year was in St. Laurent because that is the only Métis Legion in Canada.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, thank you very much once again, Minister Shawn Nault, Minister of the Red River Métis Veterans, and he's with the Manitoba Métis Federation. Now, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up or subscribe. We very much enjoyed having you here today. Excellent. Well, and we'll look forward to perhaps seeing you again in the near future, but join us again as we are looking forward to having more guests join us from across the Métis Nation right here on the Métis in Canada podcast.